Welcome back to another episode. I am so excited. I am here today with a very special guest, Vicki Workman. I first met Vicki back in, I think, 2015 in Chicago. Is that right?
Yeah, well remembered. Yeah.
And so we've stayed in touch over the years, and I'm really excited because Vicki's going to share with us her 6 principles for guitar success today. Before we do that, Vicki, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background and overview of what you do?
Cool. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, thanks for having me today. So yeah, I run a guitar school exclusively for guitar. We don't do any other instruments. I'm obviously in the UK. My original school was based in South London. We've been pretty much fully online for the past year because of all this COVID stuff. Yeah, we've actually found that since being online, kind of the opposite, really, what I thought would happen actually happened. We thought everybody would just say, oh, this online stuff isn't working. It's it's no good for us. We're off. I mean, that happened with a few people, but what we found is that a lot of our students have made a massive amount of progress. I would say probably more progress than they've made since before we were online. So it's been a really interesting learning experience for me.
Wow, that's cool. And I had kind of a similar experience. I thought for sure, as soon as we went to online, that was it. It was going to be, the business was basically over until everything came back. And the majority of our students stuck with us. And I was like, yeah, but even if they stay with us, how well is this really going to work? And it worked surprisingly well. So well, in fact, that even though most of our students are now back in person, we've got some students that are like, hey, I like just being able to stay at home, click on the computer, not have to drive over there. And while I miss getting to see some of them live and in person, it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting is that, I don't know about you, but I would never have thought of doing something like this if I hadn't have been kind of forced into it. So, it's a bit of a kind of happy accident, really.
Right, yeah.
Because obviously now, we've had a similar thing, parents saying, oh, it's great, we don't have to drive in rush hour traffic and find somewhere to park. And, when they've got a billion other things going on as well. I think the reason why we haven't kind of rushed to get straight back to in-person stuff is because it seems to be working for the majority of them. So, but yeah, like you, I do miss seeing them in person. And I think one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be organizing more and more kind of face-to-face jam sessions and, workshops and application-based stuff, just so we can get to be in the same room and jam with them, because that's kind of where the fun really is, isn't it?
Yeah. That, I would say, that's one of the few drawbacks about being online is not being able to play with somebody in real time.
Yeah.
And for me, that is kind of the epitome of being a musician, is getting, I think it's akin to having a conversation with somebody. I mean, I can sit and talk to myself all day long, and it's pretty entertaining, but it's just not the same experience as talking with somebody. And I feel like that's kind of what jamming with someone is like.
Absolutely. Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah.
So do you guys have any students in person right now?
Not for the main lessons. What we are doing is we are gradually building in some in-person,
just like those events and those jam sessions you were talking about.
But the actual lessons, no. I don't know whether that's going to be something that we'll bring back in the future. I mean, I'm taking it pretty slow. And because we don't have premises anymore either, so even if we wanted to,
that's right, you were able
to actually have anywhere to teach them.
So that worked out really well for you. You were able to get rid of all your overhead. Now for me, my overhead is not a lot in terms of our location. So it made sense for us to kind of keep that space and let the teachers work in the rooms. And as students slowly kind of came back in person, we were there for it. But for you, that makes sense, that since you don't have an on-site location now, to not be in a hurry to get back to that, because that just adds kind of one more thing to worry about and manage.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
cool.
our premises was, being in London, it's not cheap. So
Yeah, I'm
so
sure.
that was something that we were
Yeah.
able to save on. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, real quick, I don't want to talk too much about this because I know everybody's tired of hearing about it. But here in Texas, everything is pretty much back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since the CDC had announced, if you're vaccinated, you're at virtually zero risk to yourself or anybody else. And I remember it was like that day, business has changed and everybody stopped wearing masks. There's a few places you still have to wear a mask, but by and large, everything is completely back to normal here. What is it like over in London?
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say we're completely back to normal. We had a pretty nasty second wave at the beginning of the year. We were back in quite a tight lockdown. Things are opening up. We're kind of at I think the third stage of reopening. So, the bars and restaurants are open. We've just got a week of lovely weather here, which is lovely. So we're all able to go out and see friends and stuff. And I think if all goes to plan, I think the end of June, so we've only got another 3 weeks or so, things will be pretty much back to normal. So yeah, holding out for that.
Cool. You know what's so funny is just real quick, and then I want to get into our main topic about your 6 principles for guitar success. I remember when the pandemic started, and we all thought like, oh, okay, a couple of weeks of staying at home, right? But then the medical professionals and them, they were saying, well, a pandemic typically lasts about 18 months. And I remember just thinking like, no way. And sure enough, we're what, 14, we're on like month 15 of this. And we're right at, it looks like it's going to be right about at that 18 month mark.
Absolutely. No. Yeah. I mean, it was like, oh, well, we're not sure how long this is going to go on for, maybe a few months, maybe a few weeks, maybe a couple of months tops. And then it was like, yeah, here we are.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into it. I'm always fascinated with different instructors who, and their method for teaching. And I find a lot of times most great teachers have very similar principles for success. And even outside of music, the principles are relatively the same, but it's always fun to see kind of the little differences and the unique approaches that people take. So let's get into that. Share with us these principles.
Cool. Okay, Eric. So just really quickly, just to give you a bit of background on where these came from. So obviously, as I said, we went online. I was scared everybody was going to quit, but the opposite happened. And we had this kind of core of students who were just doubling down and doing really, really well. But then others that weren't doing quite so well. And I thought, okay, well, even now we're online, it's clearly the face-to-face versus online debate is kind of dead, because these students are doing really well, in spite of that. And, I was having conversations with parents who were really, really grateful because I guess so many other things had stopped, and their guitar lessons was like, the one thing that they were doing outside of school that was kind of, keeping them motivated and keeping them kind of giving them something else to do. So I thought, well, look, what are these students and their parents doing differently to the ones who perhaps aren't doing quite so well? So I interviewed some of these parents and some of these students. I think there's about 20 or 30 of them that I interviewed. And then from those responses, obviously you start to notice patterns. People are tending to say a lot of the same things. And I collated those responses. And from that's what I then distilled down into these 6 principles or 6 steps, or, whatever you want to call them. I need to think of a catchy name for them, really. The first one is set goals. And I'm sure that as I go through these, Eric, you'll be nodding your head, but and a lot of it will seem really obvious to us as well as musicians and as teachers.
But isn't it true that in just in general in life, we look for these complex, like unique things, but really the principles for how we live our lives successfully, they're really pretty simple. It's a matter of, are we willing to carry them out. And I feel like setting your goals has to be number one.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, it's obvious to you, it's obvious to me when I'm, it doesn't matter whether I'm talking to the parent of a 4-year-old child or, whether I'm talking to a retired adult, the first question I will ask them is, well, what are your goals? And often people haven't thought about it. They've just thought, oh, well, my kid has, shown an interest in learning an instrument, or, I used to play when I was younger. And then I'll say, yeah, but what do you actually want to do? And just kind of drilling down into that, that motivation for wanting to do it. Often people haven't really thought about it. And I find that if they go into the process and they haven't thought about it, even if it's something really basic, like, I'd like to be able to play a couple of songs, for my family, like that's a goal. It doesn't have to be, I want to be playing on, on stage in stadiums. So, but yeah, it's the first thing that I talk to people about. And if they're not sure what their goals are, I really get them to think about it, because I explain that without goals, when it gets hard, because it will get hard, and when they lose motivation, because they will, then they can always go back to those goals and think, okay, this is the reason why I wanted to do this in the first place.
Yeah.
So
totally.
So yeah, setting goals is the first one. The second one is creating structure. And that structure is around both the lessons themselves. So making sure that you are, you have a kind of structured lesson time. So, every week that's the time that you're going to go for your lesson. You try not to book in dentist appointments and, whatever else is going on around all of that stuff. Like it needs to be something that you take seriously, but also around a practice routine. So we normally recommend between sort of 10 minutes and 30 minutes a day, depending on the age and level of our students.
And would you agree that it's more important in the beginning just to get in the habit of following that structure, even if you're not practicing for very long?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So what I normally say to parents, particularly of the younger kids, is look, even if you can just get them sitting down for a couple of minutes and doing something, then you can kind of gradually build that time up. So you don't need to force them to sit down for 20 minutes if they're really not up for it. But if you just create the time in the first place, and the expectation is there that that's going to be practice time, even if they only do 2 or 3 minutes, then that's going to be better than nothing, and it's going to help to create that habit.
Yeah. And I can tell you, for me, my oldest daughter is 10 years old right now,
Mm-hmm.
and she's been playing piano for almost 5 years. But so now I can say, okay, it's time for you to go practice. She'll go set a timer for 30 minutes and just do it. No problem.
Yeah.
But it didn't start that way.
No.
Right? It started pulling teeth and just every day, just for a few minutes getting to it. And now we've got that routine down.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing as well. It takes time. Sometimes it can take several months. And often that's the thing that parents, I think, don't realize as well. They kind of think that their kid's just gonna, I'm a 5-year-old kid, I'm gonna go and practice my guitar for 20 minutes.
Yeah. And
that's never gonna happen.
I mean, how many times does this happen to you? It happens to me all the time. It will be a couple minutes into it, and the parent will call me and they'll be like, I just thought my kid was gonna love it enough to practice every day, and they're just not practicing. Yeah. And I'm like, of course they're not practicing.
Yeah.
You have to make them. We have to develop that routine. When my kids first grew their teeth in, and I had to get them to brush their teeth, it was I had to do it with them every day, and it took quite a bit of time before they just knew to instinctively do it on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. So structure is really important. And then as part of that as well, we use a structured method. I'm sure you do too. So, we're not just kind of jumping around on YouTube, watching different videos on different things. And again, that is all part of this system as well. You need the lesson time, the practice time, but also you need to actually know what it is that you're learning. So you know what you're going to be learning, roughly how long it's going to take, what you need to be practicing, and all of that stuff as well.
Yeah, now let's talk about that real quick, because
Mm.
I find for us, our approach with kids is very different than our approach
Mm.
for adults.
Mm.
So with kids, we have our standardized curriculum, and we just start them at the beginning and we work them through it, because kids typically don't know what it is exactly they want until they hit those teenage years. But I find adults, they tend to know exactly what they want. And sometimes what they want means we have to say, okay, in order for you to do this, we have to do these other things first. And that kind of creates the plan. And if the adult doesn't know what to do, then we'll just take them through our curriculum. But I find that even if we just start through our curriculum with the student, it doesn't take very long before they've brought something in and they're like, hey, I've got this thing I really want to learn, this song. Can you help me with that? And most of the time, they're doing that consistently. And I hate to say it's the lesson gets kind of run by the adult, but they really do kind of chart the course more than we do. And I find, at least for us, that tends to work better for adults. So what is that like for you with adults versus kids?
Yes, I mean, with kids, it's definitely easier to kind of just run that structured program. And obviously you've got longer with kids generally as well. If a kid starts with you when they're 7 or 8, you can have sort of 5 or 6 years of really, really getting them through that structure. But I do find, and this is something I'm going to come on to in a minute, that there needs to be some balance between what they need, like what we know that they need to learn, all the boring stuff, right, with the stuff that they actually want to learn as well. But yeah, you're right. With adults, they tend to come in, they're very clear on the kind of music they like, the kind of guitar players they want to play like. So yeah, there is a certain amount of flexibility that we will kind of keep that structure going, but then it's a little bit like that kind of spoonful of sugar, kind of teaching them the stuff that they need, but then sprinkling in the stuff that they want. So you can say to them, well, look, you may have found this stuff hard and you may have questioned why we were doing it, but this is why we were doing it, because now you can play the stuff that you actually want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then the one thing is, if an adult comes in and they say, this is kind of what I want to focus on, and we do that, the only thing I won't tolerate is if they come in one week wanting to do something, and then the next week they come in and say, well, I didn't really work on that, but I kind of want to do this other thing also. I'm like, no. You said you wanted to do this. We're going to see this through.
Yeah.
And we're not going to avoid it just because as soon as you got into it, you decided this path isn't as fun as you thought maybe it was going to be.
Yes, definitely. And yes, you do find that more with adults as well, because they're looking around at all these YouTube channels and chasing this and chasing that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like you say you want to do something, you've got to stick with that, because otherwise it's going to get very, very messy.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Okay, so my next one is, these all kind of roughly begin with S as well, by the way. That wasn't done on purpose, but my next one is skills. So learn the core skills first, and I'm sure that you have this as well, Eric. People always want to coming back to setting goals, the goals are going to be, well, I want to play a certain song or like a certain guitar player. And I've certainly been guilty of this as an inexperienced guitar teacher in my early days, just trying to teach people exactly the stuff that they say they want to learn. I can remember trying to teach an Avenged Sevenfold solo to a beginner, which was obviously completely nuts. Like, I mean, of course I was setting him up and me to fail. So this idea that, there are these core skills, it doesn't really matter how old you are. I mean, obviously, they can be taught differently across the ages, or even what style of music you want to play. There are these core skills that you really need to learn and get good at first. We can pepper in the other stuff, within that. but you're not going to get very far if you just focus on trying to learn the songs without getting that skill foundation first.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like, I'll never forget. I had one student who came in, this was years ago, and they said, I want to learn how to play Wonderwall.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, that's great. What else? They said, that's it. I only want to be able to play that one song. And I was like, but you got to realize, in order to play that one song, you have to be adept at playing chords, getting your fingers to move that way. You have to have great rhythm and timing to do those. And I was like, those two skills alone are going to allow you to play thousands and thousands of songs.
Yes.
And the amount of work it's going to take to just play that one song really applies to everything else. So we need to start with these other things. And that, I can just say that student didn't last very long because they weren't interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, that's not an easy strumming pattern for beginners.
It's really pretty complex.
Yeah. And, it doesn't help as well, when you see online easy beginner song. Well, actually, it's not that. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
Cool. So skills is obviously really important. Number 4 is support, which kind of comes in all sorts of different guises, really. But we've found that particularly for parents, getting support from us as the teachers has been really, really valuable, whether that's things like, Facebook Lives. We've got a kind of shared Google folder that we have various PDFs and videos and things that people can watch as well, kind of on their own. We've been putting a lot of stuff up on our YouTube channel as well over the past year or so. So there's the support from the teachers and the parents. There's also the support from the parents to the child as well, which is also super important. And it comes back to what you were saying earlier, about parents just expecting their kid to be motivated and want to practice right from the off. Like, there has to be some degree of parental involvement, unless you've got a freakishly we have actually got a couple of kids, like we've got one 6-year-old student who's going to be an absolute monster. I mean, he's already at a really, really good level, but the level of support that he gets from his parents to enable him to do that, like, he's already got the bug, but they have been very much there. They both play a little bit themselves, but if that support isn't there from parents, then the child feels kind of unsupported. The support is really, really kind of critical, especially in the early stages. But this also comes back to also running group lessons as well, and that kind of sense of community that people feel, when they're learning with other people. I'm sure you've got a similar comparison, Eric, but when I used to teach private lessons, our retention is much, much, much higher now that we're teaching in groups, because students have that sense of community. They know that other people are learning similar things to them. They know that other people are struggling. They can ask for support, not only from the teachers, but also from other students. And I think that that's probably, out of all of these 6, I think this is probably the most important one, because you want to feel, you don't want to feel isolated. You want to feel like you're in a group, and everybody, everyone's kind of going through the same process.
Yeah, I totally agree. With our kids stick around so much longer when they are able to interact with other kids and get to know them and have fun and make friends. And I noticed that for me as well. My first experience learning in a group was when I was at Berklee College of Music, and I had my private lessons, but then we also had our guitar labs, which was, it ended up being me and a few other guitar players learning from one teacher, and we all had the same assignments each week and the same kinds of projects, and it was my favorite thing that we did. And so being able to offer that to our students, I'm really proud that we do it, and we do it well at my music school. I will say the thing for adults that we're just now getting into is, because we've always done concerts for our the young students, and that's a big sense of support for them. Getting on stage and hearing all the parents and the other students cheer for them, that's huge. But then for the adults, they tend to be a little more frightened of doing that, understandably so, because as adults, we have all these insecurities that we've built up over the years, and we're less willing to, I think, expose ourselves in a vulnerable way for fear of rejection, where kids kind of don't really have that. But I'm excited that we're starting to now offer that sense of support for adults, doing what I call adult open mics, which are really just concerts for the adults, but I call it an open mic so it feels like less pressure. But are you guys, do you guys do adult group lessons as well?
Yeah, cool. Absolutely. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Adults have a lot more baggage, don't they, about, am I going to be any good, and am I going to make a fool of myself, and all of this, which I completely understand as an adult. But once they kind of get over that, then they sort of realize the benefit of it. But sometimes getting them over that in the first place is the hardest part.
I think it's absolutely the biggest challenge with an adult student. If we can get them past that, the rest is easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, some of our best students are ones that have been with us, 5, 6, 7 years. And they are the ones who have thrown themselves into. So, we do open mics. Well, we used to, we will be again soon. We do open mics too. And, some of them have formed bands, and some of them are playing out, in the local area. And it's just really, really nice to see, because I wonder if they would be doing that stuff now if they'd just gone down that, private lesson route, because they've had all of that, early experience with us of getting up on stage and kind of pulling that Band-Aid off and, just getting it done. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So far we've had, I think we've covered four principles. With set your goals.
So set your goals. Yeah. Have a learning structure. Learn the core skills first and get support.
Got it. Cool. All right. So what is number 5?
So number 5 is play songs, right? So this is obviously very, very important. And the reason why this one made the list is because I think as a guitar teacher, it's very, very easy to get really stuck on focusing on the skills, right? Learn this scale, run it up and down, learn this strumming pattern, do these ear training exercises without really explaining why. And I think especially for kids, they need to get these quick wins very, very quickly, right?
Absolutely.
So as much as I am all about teaching the core skills first, and the syllabus that we use is very much based around that, I am also very keen on, as soon as students have the minimum basic skills in place so that they can play a song, we teach them a song, or we encourage them to, we might send them a little YouTube link. So I often send Lauren Bateman's Horse with No Name YouTube link to some of our beginner students, because I know once they can play that E minor chord and they can, they've got a pretty simple strumming pattern, that's a really easy song that they can then play. So I guess the reason why that one's in there is because I don't want people to think, oh, well, I need to spend 5 or 6 years learning all the chords first, learning all the skills first, and then learn songs. No, you want to be applying those skills as soon as you possibly can into songs and music that you like, because that's where the fun is. No one particularly, well, I don't know, maybe you do, but no one particularly has fun just running scales up and down,
I agree, because you and I both at one time were learning from someone who had a philosophy of skills.
Yeah.
And I myself focused on just continuing to develop my skills. And eventually I got tired of it. I got burned out on doing that for myself. And I started learning some fun songs again. And I learned for me that well, that's why I started playing in the first place. I was always learning new songs. And even today, I have a lot of fun learning new songs and continuing to write my own. And there's a lot of joy in that, and balancing that with continuing to work on skills. I mean, how old were you when you started playing?
Oh, 8.
Yeah.
8 or 9. Yeah, pretty young.
When you were 8, 9 years old, what was it you enjoyed doing the most?
That's a really good question. I enjoyed going around to my friend's house on a Saturday morning and writing songs. I mean, I think I knew like 2 or 3 guitar chords. I made stuff up. You know, she could play chopsticks on the piano. But yeah, that was the fun stuff. I remember that much more than I remember my lessons.
Yeah. So I think either writing songs or learning other people's songs, or some kind of actually creating music is so fundamental. And once we got back to that as a music school, I think our students started having a lot more fun. Yeah. And so I make sure that that's a part that every student is always working on some kind of a song, whether it's their own or somebody else's, along with those skills. So I'm glad to hear that that's a core part of your philosophy as well.
Very, very, very much so. Yeah. Yeah. And then the 6th one, the final one, going kind of hand in hand with that, is performing on stage, you know, getting up stage and performing. Now, when I say performing on stage, people often get a little bit scared, you know, think I'm talking about performing in front of thousands of people. A stage can be, you know, a little set up in the corner of your bedroom to, you know, maybe play a couple of songs for your mum and dad, or your brothers and sisters, or, you know, when the family come round at, you guys do Thanksgiving or Christmas, or, you know, whatever, like that can be a kind of performing opportunity. And again, it's another reason why we like teaching in groups from the outset, because what we don't want, and what we used to see when we were teaching solely privately, is that people would be learning, you know, for 2 or 3 years, they'd become quite good players, and they'd be more than capable technically of getting up on stage and playing. But because they'd never played in front of anybody else, you know, the sweat and the you know, the color would drain from their face. Oh my goodness, you know, am I going to have to get up on stage? So it's just giving them those little opportunities along the way, where it, you know, then they gradually start getting more confident performing in front of more and more people. And you know, I think that going through all of those 6 steps, from setting goals to performing on stage, it really massively increases the students' chances then of, you know, taking it off and it become, you know, making it their own, right? And actually like becoming a proper guitar player, a proper musician. So getting them on stage before they're good, I think is really important. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's my 6 steps.
I love it. I fully endorse it.
Yeah, good. Yeah. If there's anything that I missed out there, then you know, anything that you think that maybe I missed out there, then let me know.
I don't think so. I think you've really covered it. So that's so that's great. So let me ask you this before we go. What are for obviously for you as a business owner, what are your goals? What or maybe not even like long term. What would you say is next? It sounds like getting more events, more support events in place is next for you guys. Anything else?
Well, we are actually on the cusp of doing a complete rebrand and restructure of our business. It's actually a simultaneously exciting and scary time because, you know, I'm seeing a lot of new opportunities now. So we want to get more. We want to get a location, an original location set up, but we also want to start working, you know, broadening where we're working a little bit more, other areas of London, and just kind of expanding, training some more teachers, working with more awesome guitar players, really.
Cool. Cool. I love it. Well, Vicki, this has been really great. It's really nice to connect with you in this way, in person, if you will. And I really appreciate having you today. Where can people learn more about you and your business?
So they can go to my current website, which is croydonguitartuition.com.
Okay, wait, you might have to spell that out for us. Say it one more time.
Croydon, Croydon, guitartuition.com.
Okay. And I guess that's what they call it. That's what you guys call it overseas, is not guitar lessons, but guitar tuition.
Tuition. Yeah. Oh, is that not a thing in the States?
No.
Oh, okay.
And the other thing that I noticed is common, like when I upload a YouTube video lesson, a real common search term is tutorial. So is that what you guys say? Like, come to Croydon Guitar Tuition and have tutorials with us, or do you call them lessons?
Yeah, it's a little bit formal. Tutorials are a little bit more formal. I would normally call them lessons.
Okay. But you definitely call it tuition.
I think tuition sounds a little more whole, right? Because when it's not just about coming to your, half-hour lesson or your hour-long lesson a week, it's everything that we provide. So
yeah. Whereas here in the United States, I think the word tuition is usually associated with payments.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's cool. Well, Vicki, thanks again for being here today, and we look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you for having me, Eric. Cheers.